Okay, before we start, right now on the screen you see the main topic of webinar, what we're gonna go and discuss today, and what was the reason why we decided to conduct this webinar. First of all, we just wanted to show the perspective of proper QA processes. With many companies, we are working in terms of QA, and we noticed common things among many of them. And usually this is underestimation of impact on the business. And when I'm talking about the impact, first of all, I mean quality assurance impact. How we realize that usually through the simple testing of their product. Before we start working together with any of customer, we are testing their application like as end user, and there were no cases. I cannot remember where we haven't find any no critical bugs, and usually I'm talking about bugs from production. It might sound unbelievable, but it's a fact. And later, when we are working with them and helping them to build proper QA processes, we are helping them to escape these critical bugs on production. And the main thing to do that, first of all, is just to build proper regression testing execution. And there are two ways, of course. First of all, you can start from manual testing, but when you have a big regression suite and you have more and more test cases to check on a regular basis, of course, your second step should be automation. And today we are going exactly to share our success case, how we implement the project for one of our customer, and help them exactly with the such case I described before. Before we start, I'll tell a couple words about myself. As you may noticed from the invitation, my name is Viktor Malyavka, and I'm CTO and co-founder at Cherish DEV company. Again, our company, the main of our company is the QA, and again the QA services. In my experience, I have more than 10 years of practical experience, and I started my career as test automation engineer, and then had experience in many roles and positions like QA lead, QA manager, QA director. I was working for the outsourcing companies, also for product companies. In my portfolio, I can say about companies like Kiriba, IDT, also EPAM, and so on. So I have rich experience, and I will be really glad to share this experience with you. And then let's move to the webinar. What is our agenda for today? First of all, we will speak about how we started the project and why we started it, and I'll tell about initial customer request. Then I'll provide some details about how we work with this request and how we start this project. Then when we started this project, the first changes was related to processes. I'll provide the changes for processes that we introduced. Then we will switch to some technical stuff, and I'll provide more details about test automation framework implementation. We'll talk about CI changes we introduced. Also, we will discuss pretty interesting topic related to implementation of mocked API. And at the end, we will just sum up everything we just discussed, and I'll share the final results. About the case, about the project we're going to discuss today. We started it. Well, about a year ago, we had one customer that came to us, and that was the real estate project with about 6 million active users. And the reason why they found us and why we had that discussion, it's because they had some QA gaps. And the most important was related to long releases. They wanted to change their dev processes, and they wanted to make fast releases, and they want to make often and often them. But unfortunately, they have pretty big regression scope, about 5,000 test cases, and to execute all these test cases took from them about 5 days from 5 QA engineers. So it was pretty long. And another issue they had was related to production bugs. Again, as I mentioned, in their regression suite, they had about 5,000 test cases, and they already had some automation, and about 10% of this regression suite was automated. Before we'll move to the next slide, I'm just curious about your current state, guys, on your project. If you want, you can share what is current number related to your regression suite, and if you execute it, how long does it take to execute whole regression? Just interesting. Please share your answers to the chat. And 1,000 tests, 20 hours, is it automated already or it's manual? Automated, cool. Any other options? 15 hours, 4K, 30 minutes. Great. That's pretty fast. Okay, I think for some of you, it's going to be really helpful that we will discuss today. Initial customer request. Here, I want to highlight the main bullet points that were really critical for our customer. Well, first of all, yeah, they wanted to have whole regression suite automated. With this, also they wanted to have implemented CI processes, because they want to run all the tests automatically right after new build available or new version of build available, and dev or test environment is ready. They wanted to have immediate access to reports, so they wanted all of this related to CI, which is really important. When we complete that project, they want to have success rate about 95%. And as it usually happens, they have pretty straight deadlines. They wanted to complete this project as soon as possible. And how did we start? How did we start working with it? Before we started the implementation of this project, and usually how we work, we are starting from the some trial period, and starting from the implementation of some proof of concept. For this project, we started from 2 automation engineers, and one of them was responsible for implementation of test automation framework. One of them was responsible for just checking possibility for the CI. We had 2 weeks, and during these 2 weeks, test automation framework was implemented, and we automated Smoke Suite. Smoke Suite consists about 200 test cases, and with automated that, we had a chance to provide some estimations. How we did that? All the test cases we got them from the testrail, and they have pretty good level of details, and we were able to calculate not even how much time we spent on automation of one test case. We were able even calculate how much time we spent on the automation of one step, because again, this case pretty great detail. And then using the testrail API, we just automatically calculated how much time we will require to complete a whole project. And what we have after implementation of concept and after the estimations. we provided to our customers that for this project, we will start from 5 test automation engineers. You can ask why 5. The first reason, because their application consists of 5 submodules. And we decided to assign one engineer to one submodule, just not to provide any mess and not to put more people to some submodule, because it will take more attention from QA internal team. With these 5 engineers, we calculated that it will take 6 months to complete whole project. As the result, 5,000 test cases would be automated, and new CI processes be introduced to the team. That was the result of our investigation. After that, as I mentioned, the first thing that we start from was exactly related to process changes for the project. For us, for the company that provide quality assurance services, the main thing was exactly transparency. And we're making everything just to provide clear understanding for any person from the project, from the team, what we are doing, what's happened, and how much time that does it take, and so on. And in terms of transparency, the first thing we started from was the changes for the JIRA. What we did there, we created 2 different boards. One board we just used for all the technical tasks. Well, all the tasks related to like implementation for test automation framework, related to implementation for the CI, some additional scripts, some additional changes related to the core, and so on. All tasks we put there, and it was pretty easy to track, like, first of all, tech debt, what we have there, and second, like, current progress, current status, what's happened, what's gonna be next. And we created another board for the tickets, and this separate board just had a special workflow for each ticket. What ticket means? As I mentioned before, all the test cases that we got were allocated in testrail. So for all test case, for each test case, which we had a rule that we create in the separate JIRA ticket. And later this JIRA ticket or equals test case should go through some workflow. With this approach, what we just got, that we had a chance to get quick reaction from the internal QA team. For example, if we were blocked by some reason, or we need some more details about the scale, about test case, it was pretty easy to notice that. And the internal QA team just help us with providing more details and the explanation of what's happening inside the test case. And also with this, introducing this workflow, introducing these JIRA changes, we will introduce the code review process for the whole team, because team also wanted to have a chance to control everything that's happening and everything that changes. Additionally, we are back to the processes. We introduced regular reports and regular things that we conducting with the internal team. And on this, with these reports, of these things, the main numbers that we discussed, you can see on your screen right now. First of all, we provided information about number of automated test cases by each team member. We just discussed current success rate, current coverage, priorities. We discussed what remained in our tech debt, and of course we discussed priorities for the technical tasks, all blockers we had during the iteration, and also there we discussed plan for the next iteration. And here, when we introduce these processes changes, for us was important thing not to break the internal QA team activities, because we started our activities, but development is still going and testing is still going. And for us was important, we trying to get, if needed, some details about the test cases, or try to get some knowledge about the applications or functionality, but we were not trying to interrupt like very often or just ask questions only on a regular basis. So it was important not to break QA activities, because development is going and releases is going. And what we also changed related to documentation. All our changes, all the stuff we introduced, everything was just documented. And later, with this documentation, internal QA team were able to continue all the activities that we started. This is also here a really important question, because again, when we just started this project, we had 5,000 test cases, right? And we had to understand the right priority for automation, because we need to understand what test cases we should start from our automation just to start bringing value to the team at the very beginning. What we did for all the test cases, we introduced approach where we automatically calculate test case wage. To do that, we used testrail API, and for all test cases, we calculated. Well, first of all, as you can see on the formula on your screen, test case priority, that was really important, because we wanted to start our automation from the most critical cases. In general, guys had 4 different priority, like critical, high, medium, low, and it's easy to understand that we wanted to start exactly from the critical test cases. Another important numbers that we calculated there was related to, first of all, number of days that this test case exists. It means that we got current date minus date of creation for test cases, and then we just got amount of days this test case appeared in testrail. And for this period of life for this test case, we calculated amount of number of test runs. It means get the number how often this test case was executed manually during this amount of days. And using these 3 main components, we just calculated the wages. It means that we started our automation from the most critical test cases, and from the test cases that were executed manually really frequent. It means that when we just started automation from these test cases, we automated. It means that next regression, test case that before we ran manually, for next regression, this test case was already automated. So that was the approach for the defining priorities for automation. We will talk about more technical stuff. And here I'll provide some details about test automation framework solution that we introduced. First of all, as you can see, we used Cypress as the main test automation framework. Why Cypress? As I mentioned before, guys already had some automation in place, but they used all the test automation framework test cafe. And as far as I remember, when we started this project, there were announced that developers of this framework just stopped supporting of it. So from our customer, like their main desire, they wanted to have new framework on Cypress. Also, when we decided about Cypress, we also compared it with the main Cypress competitor, Playwright. And for us, when we decided about Cypress, as our customer wanted that, was exactly to check if all the limitations, let's call it this way, Cypress, are not blocker for us. In general, before we had a pretty great experience with Cypress, and all the limitations that Cypress has, we already are able to manage. But the main limitation for us for this project was to check if it's possible to work with the application with Cypress, knowing that Cypress does not allow work with the multi-windows and multi-tabs. After some discussion with the manual QA internal team, after we implemented Smoke Suite, we saw that it's not a blocker for us, so we decided to keep Cypress as our customer wanted that. Another approach for code structure and for organized functional code, let's call it this way, we decided to keep page object. The main reason why we decided to use that, again, in previous old framework, old test automation solution guys used, they used page object, and we decided also to use it just because later for the QA automation team, I mean internal team, it will be really easier to get better understanding of our solution, and they will have a chance to start much quicker knowing that, which is really important. The second option, which is really important here, again, as I mentioned before, for our customer, the main gap they had was long releases. And for us, when we just started this project, the main thing we should consider was exactly the speed of execution and speed of running tests. So all the solution, all the tools we picked, exactly considering this fact. And here, what we also added, for all the tests, test data should be created and deleted automatically. It means that we implemented additional layer in our test automation framework, and for each test, we were able to create data via API and then also delete it. And this way, were able to make all the tests absolutely independent, right? So tests were independent, and that was the preparation for parallel execution. As the CI tool, we picked Cypress. And that's kind of interesting, because usually if you're talking about the Cypress, the first tool you're going to use for the CI, it will be Cypress Dartboard. We decided not to use it, and I believe the main reason not to use it was because if you want to use it, you have to pay for it, right? So we found open source solution, which is free. And I can say that we were absolutely right, because later, considering the fact it's open source solution, because later our customer just wanted to add some additional information, some additional statistics, some additional graphs to the dashboard, and we were able to implement it really easy because it's open source product. And even more, later we added possibility to analyze and set the reason of test failure inside the Cypress. So in general, functionality was pretty similar even to the testrail. So each user was able to go to the Cypress dashboard, open the latest test run, and see if tests were already analyzed, see the reason of failure, find the most common reason, and so on. So Cypress was the right solution. And with CI implementation as the input, we have these three main tools. First of all, we had the TeamCity, and the TeamCity was the CI tool that we used inside all the dev processes for our customer. Again, as I mentioned before, we had the Cypress, and all these auto tests, all the solution that we implemented should be run on AWS infrastructure. And what we did with that, let me show you the infrastructure that we implemented. As you can see on this picture, and you need to look on this picture from bottom and then move up. When we started from the CI/CD, from the TeamCity, and we had Docker images that we keep in ESR. And here was the Docker image that was shared later with the all instances. Here you can see it's like a Cypress worker. On this scheme, we just draw 4 workers, but in general, we had a limitation according to the performance of instances that were provided to us. We had a limitation about 10 instances. So 10 instances, 10 threads. Let's put it this way. We were limited by these numbers. On the left, with all these instances, we had a shared file system, and all these instances were located on ESS. And here we had a director, and here as the director was exactly Cypress. And the Cypress was responsible for distribute all the auto tests, all the let's call it feature files between all the instances, between all the workers. Also, as you can see here, for the Cypress, we had a database, MongoDB, and we had the separate API. And exactly because we implemented all schema like that, it was possible pretty easy, as I mentioned before, to add any statistics, to keep the statistics, to analyze the test, to keep results of analysis from each team member, and then later to get these results by any of manager. As I mentioned before, we had a limitation about 10 instances. That was enough because we were able to find the right balance between speed of execution and the cost for this infrastructure for our customer. In general, our customer for this infrastructure with the 10 threads, with the 10 instances, our customer paid like $150 per month. Just to sum up, was the most important here? What was the most important reasons why we able to show the number? I mean, to run 5,000 tests in 2 hours. First of all, that was the prepared test suite. For all tests, we had parallelization on the feature level. So we worked with the feature files, and even if we have one big feature for the same functionality, we're trying to make it is 2 or 3 separate features. And considering the fact that our test had prepared test data, our tests were independent, we were able to run the same test for the same functionality even in parallel, and we don't have any issues with that. Also, inside we use test tagging. It means that each separate test was marked with any tag, and with this approach, we were able to automatically to generate test suites according to the functionality, according, let's say, to the team, according to the different smoke suite, not smoke, but according to the different test suite. And yeah, if, for example, there was any change from developers related to only one functionality, we don't need to run pulse regression suite. We just pick needed tag and runs only test we need. The second main bullet here is related to Sorry Cypress, because as the director, let's call it, or as a distributor, parallelization on feature level works really well with Sorry Cypress. And the third bullet here, yeah, is AWS instances with predefined Docker images. So all these key factors exactly gave us the numbers that we had later. This is maybe not 100% related to the topic of our webinar today, but anyway, I want to show you also because it's pretty interesting. It's related to mocked API, and when we just started, when we had about 2,000 of tests automated, and we ran them regularly, we just started the noticing issue when our test runs just get in queue and wait for the platform, for the test environment will be available. Why it's happened? It's happened because of, for example, there were some changes from developers to some API, and the API was unavailable for us. And it means that we had to wait until API became available and only then run our test. And we discussed that with customer, and what we proposed just to mock API and run our test on the mocked API, how it might possible. When we run our test, as you can see here, from up to bottom, when we run our test via Cypress, we execute the test on the application, and then we send the request to API. When we get the response, we intercept this response and keep and save this data to some files. And with this approach, for example, we run one test, and for this test, for all the responses we got from API, we had amount of test data, test responses exactly for this functionality. And here, that was the scheme. On this scheme, you need to look from the left to the right. As you can see here on the left, when we started our test, we had 2 conditions. And let's call these conditions like you wanted to run your test on real API, or you wanted to run your test on the mocked API. When real, then we move up to develop branch. And when we're running all our tests, I mean whole regression, we're running the test, and we are saving test data exactly the use approach I showed you previous slide. And then we just upload all these test data to S3 bucket. And it means that every time we run our test, we update data there, and all the time have up-to-date responses, up-to-date, let's call it API, that we're keeping in an S3 bucket. Next time, for example, when we are running our test and API unavailable for us, then we are moving to, on this scheme, it's like non-develop branch, or we are moving to mocked API. And in this case, we are running mock tests. We build on each instance, we build and run front end there. And for the responses, we are not calling the real API, we're just getting the mocked responses that were already saved. And here also I want to ask a quick question from you, because when we just implemented this approach, we just, our guess was that it's going to be not the real API and we shouldn't wait for the responses. Our guess was that tests, auto tests running with mocked API became faster. What do you think, guys? Became it faster or stays the same, or even it will take even longer with the real API comparison? Faster. Steve saying is faster. Any more answers, guys? Any more guesses? Faster, slower. I want to see stays the same, and we will have all options. Well, to be honest, when we just, yeah, agree with Ali. When to be honest, our guess was exactly that it should came faster, but originally we just get the situation where time execution stay pretty the same. I believe the reason of it, it's exactly the operation related to getting the test data and then reading it. So originally for our number of tests, 5,000, time stay pretty the same with the 100% mocked API. And as the results, guys, what were the results of our project? First of all, we reduced regression time up to 4 times. As I mentioned before, originally it was 5 days for 5 key engineers. When we started running all the tests, we were able to run and analyze all the regression, like it took 2 days from 2 key engineers. Success rate is 97%. And here, again, just to reach the success rate was not so difficult because of Sorry Cypress provide us possibility to monitor and to see the test results in real time. I mean, you're running your test and you are able to see the results of each separate test, not waiting until feature is completed, feature is done. So our automation engineers were able to see the results in real time. When we had the test run completed, we already have fixes, let's say, for 30–40% of failed tests. Yeah, we automated 5,000 test cases. Execution time about 2 hours. We provide possibility to run our test on 100% mocked API. Additionally, knowledge transfers were conducted related to all the topics, test automation, CI, all the processes. We just explain and provide everything to the team. And again, all the processes were documented. That's the final results. That's pretty much it, guys, what we had today for agenda. Now, because I've been noticing that there are some questions. Let's move to the questions and answers. Let's move to the questions and answers. First question from Roman. How long does it take to analyze failed tests? Well, yeah, that's a common question. It takes about, let's call it 4–8 hours, and from 1–2 key engineers. Of course, in case of some massive changes, In case of some massive changes, it might be more, but I would say yes. For 2 engineers, about 4 hours, 8 hours. Steve, playwright or Cypress? That's the great questions. I believe this is more about personal feelings of each tool. For me, all of these tools are really great, and all of these tools have some advantages if we compare them. For me personally, Playwright, but for me, Cypress is also a really great tool. Thank you. Vitaly, what percentage was the framework ready at the time the proof of concept was completed? Great question. Well, to be honest, it was about 60–70%, because later we just added some additional layers to our test automation framework, just because we started having better understanding of the application. But in general, yeah, I would say 60–70%. It means that, yeah, for the first 2 weeks we were preparing proof of concept, we were able almost to complete test automation framework, and then we just provided some stuff only which for the product for the project, but all the main stuff, everything related to the core, was exactly completed in the first 2 weeks. Also, I've just noted there is some question in the chat. Why did you use MongoDB, not DynamoDB, for example? It's more AWS native. Yes, I agree. I agree. It is. That was the requirement from our customer, and that was the infrastructure our customer provided. We were trying just to adopt our solution in the environment our customer has. Looks like no more questions in the questions area in a chat. You can still ask them if you have, but if you will have some questions later, or I don't know, you need to think about, because today I provided I know that many different insights and too much information for 1 hour. Later, if you will have a question, you can contact us via email. Here you can see email on your screen, or you can find me personally LinkedIn and send me personal message. I will be always really glad to provide some additional information, or you can go to our website cherishdev.com and set up additional session, and we will meet and discuss all the questions you have. So please use this email or find me or us all other ways. And for all of you guys who stayed till the end and listening this webinar, we will provide a bonus with the for the all participants, and I believe that we have contact almost all of you. We will send the email where we will provide you additional QA services from our company. You will be able to book 16 hours of free testing of your product, and if you can think, and if you want, you can use it. This proposal will be available till end of this week. So starting from Monday next week, we will start working on your requests. And that's pretty much it, guys. We are in time and we are good. Thank you everybody guys for your time. Thank you for listening this webinar. Hope it was helpful, and see you. Bye guys.